32. Trade 5.
Okay, we think we've addressed our audio issues. Hopefully, we can bring some commentary back. And of course, if you didn't want commentary, you are free to mute us and watch the joy. But I'm Matt Canick. I'm here joined by Morris Greenberg with the second
Hey.
round of the National Scrabble Championship.
Wow, and Bradley has found an awesome bingo air burst. I'm not sure I would have found that uh, right away, but he's
63.
got it down. He chose to take it for two less points than placing the R from Runtier uh, at the beginning of the word. My guess is he just wants fewer big spots for Will to counterplay with.
Honestly, I'd be so excited with a rack like that to like see a word. I might just play it too. Interesting placement for sure by Bradley. He's already got a deficit in this game, given he had to exchange and he's been bingoed on. But he's probably got reasons for doing it, and it is a nice find in either case. So well done to Bradley, and we'll see where we go from here. Will is not going to be able to do almost anything because he has no vowels. May just have to drop whiz through the I for 25.
Yeah, Wiz seems right. Maybe adds if you really don't want to stick the Z in that triple lane, but it adds a DZ that is through the A and air burst. But I think we'll probably opt for Wiz. And it is interesting that he played Jet over Jest last turn. He kept two S's, and this board really wasn't friendly for S's. Um, I might have played Jest, but I understand the logic from Will. You don't want to necessarily telegraph that you have an S. It also creates a juicy J spot for Brad to score with potentially. So, yeah, I understood the logic of Jet, but he basically drew into the worst case scenarios when you play Jet over Jest.
That is tough. Hey, Morris, could you give us a score update since we're here?
Yeah, so it should be 119 to 95 if all the scores have been counted correctly or
And
placed to count correctly.
that's in Will's favor, correct?
Yes, in Will's favor, and it's Will's turn. I also saw a question of will there be call-ins in coverage in the live stream? There will be later on in the tournament. We're likely going to devote half days apiece to either NWL or Collins, just so it's easier for players to know which board one they're going to. So Will opts for
Whoa.
swim.
What an interesting play. I would have dropped whiz without thinking about it for a second.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this board is sort of weird where there aren't really a lot of scoring spots in general right now. And so maybe he thinks, I don't. My worst case scenario is if Brad has a response after Wiz of something like I don't know, an AZE word like glaze to the triple, that would make it really tough for me. Whereas swim doesn't allow a lot of worst case scenarios. So it's an interesting move, and I think definitely a good idea. And Brad responds nicely as well.
Chat mentions a swim is valid, so I don't know if this is Will setting up a hook he doesn't have, or maybe he's thinking Bradley might have some lexicon confusion. Maybe he had a reason for doing that. I'm very curious. I would love to ask Will what his thoughts were after, but it's going to work out super nicely for him as he manages to pick up three vowels and then bingo with anodizes through an I. So just a crazy sequence there. I'd love to hear the thoughts behind swim because that seemed very non-standard, and then it worked out so incredibly well, so instantly.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I mean non-standard it's still in these sorts of situations where you're up by a little bit and the board is really closed. That's often where you can make these sort of nuanced moves and gain that extra 1-2% chance of winning. So good on Will. Really good on Will.
Wow. Will, maybe still a little bit of trauma from last game. Remember, Will played a bingo that put an A in a triple triple line and immediately got triple tripled on with Negatron for 131. Will it happen again? I don't think so. I don't see one through that A with the letters Brad has, but definitely something interesting that may get in his head.
Yeah, and one thing to note is we mentioned that Will has played a bit in the International Dictionary and the NWL Dictionary you're seeing here. Brad has too. I think Brad has mostly played in the International Dictionary the past few years. So we'll see if there's another dictionary option of do I try this word in the International Dictionary, especially because my opponent also studies this dictionary too.
Yeah, I'm so rusty on Scrabble. I thought at first a swim might be a Collins only word, and Will was baiting for it, but that's a TWL word as well. So
Yeah.
interesting play for sure. It looks like Bradley has a flagon through the A and anodizes. He could play something like loaf as well and just double that F. He'll score some points here for sure. Nothing, stands out as a super obvious play though.
Yeah, I like flagging a lot. And as a score update, the score is right now 219 to 121 in favor of Will. It is Bradley's turn. So he definitely needs to score a bit to start clawing his way back. So it looks like he's set up FOP now, keeping a more synergistic leave of long. It scores a few fewer points of only 29 as opposed to Flagon's 36, but definitely a good idea as well.
33.
And here comes Loaf. If you're Bradley down nearly 100 points, you want to think about leaving a triple triple open, but I don't think you're that desperate this early in the game. I think you want to score some points. I would have preferred to play Flagon in this instance, just to try to get rid of a few more tiles and let the randomness take over. But Loaf is still just a fine play, and we'll see where that PONG leave takes him.
Yeah, with an eye, it's great. Without an eye, it can be clunky. But he draws an eye.
He does.
Not necessarily the other tiles you want, but it's getting towards bingos.
And we see Marlon Hill in the chat mention ING is a trap, and I completely agree with that assessment. It is a thing people like to fish for in Scrabble. They think it's quite synergistic, but a lot of the time it turns into exactly what Brad is looking at. You got your eye, cool. You're still in a lot of trouble, unless you actually hit that bingo. The G is a pretty nasty tile. It only scores 2 points, doesn't give you a ton of flexibility or options. So for that reason, I would have preferred Flagon in that case, but there's definitely some people who would play Loaf, and you could absolutely make an argument for that as well. What are you seeing here for Will Morris?
Not much is the short answer. Uh, Maybe on in the top left corner, creating ow, OW, and LA, to get rid of the A and the W on his rack. Acidy as a leave, it isn't the best, but you can draw into some good stuff. Like cyanide is a word, for instance, that pairs with that. And On still scores over 20 points. He does have a lead of 65 points right now. So, if you keep scoring a bit and getting closer and closer to good tiles, it's not a bad strategy in my view.
Yeah, definitely a choice for Will to make here. Although I don't know, the chat has mentioned multiple times front hooking nigh with an A. That is not a word. I don't think we're going to see that come down in this game, but that's an option.
Yeah, I think that might be a Colin, as some people like to say.
Is it a Colin for sure? Can
Yeah, yeah,
someone?
it is. It
It
is a
is.
Colin. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that will make things very interesting against two players who primarily play in the Collins lexicon. We may see somebody get desperate and try it later on. If I'm Will, honestly, I may leave that spot and just kind of dangle it out there all game to see if it gets taken. But you do telegraph that you don't think it's good if you play an A in any spot except that one. So we'll see. Maybe Will is thinking about these things right now. Maybe he's not thinking about these things right now.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good point that you're going to be telegraphing if you play an A that isn't valid. Though I think with On, it doesn't necessarily telegraph that. I mean, if Bradley thinks that Will is a bit of a risk taker and goes for bingos, uh, it could very reasonably. He could think, well, maybe Will's just trying to save that spot for a bingo next turn. So, I think yeah, it's a good point, but I think Will could maybe get away with it in certain kinds of plays here of playing an A. But he goes for disc, which does take an I or an S back hook. Um,
Also takes an O.
Oh, right, of course, an O as well. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good catch. Uh, so this, I think, should be the high scoring play here. It doesn't keep as synergistic of a leave of away, but scoring 30 points isn't a bad thing.
So Bradley almost certainly is going to hit that disc spot either with the I or with the O. I see David Firstman suggest disc I and Pyrog, which would be a good option. You can also play disco and roping or pouring or something like that. One thing I'm definitely thinking about if I'm Bradley is if I'm hitting that spot, I want to be very confident in whatever word I play and whether or not it takes an S. So does pouring, Poring, take an S? Does roping take an S? Do I know that for sure? I'm thinking very hard because I do not want to set up a spot unless I am very confident.
Yeah, and for the viewers at home, roping is the one that takes the S. So Bradley, I think rightfully, is going for the more open option. He is down 249 to 180 at this point, with it being Will's turn. So, he probably wants to keep that bingo lane open. But another thing to keep in mind is if you mostly study the International Dictionary, there are more ing pluralizations in that dictionary. So it could be he knows that roping is valid in the International Dictionary, but not necessarily in the North American Dictionary.
Yeah, we are having conversations now about the score widget. You see score machine broken, kind of reminds me of the McDonald's McFlurry machine memes. McFlurry machine broke or whatever. We're hoping to have that fixed after lunchtime. Is now the update we're receiving. For now, we're going to do our best to keep the scores dropped in the chat. If anybody really astute is quackling this game in the chat and wants to take those responsibilities, we would love that. Otherwise, we'll do our very best and keep you all updated with the scores there.
29.
Yeah, and I think actually the score we post in chat should be say 249 to 180, though after warm it'll be closer to 289. It'll be 29 extra points, so it'll become 278 to 180. But yeah, Will definitely has a commanding lead, which is what you always want, especially after a really tough first game where he just couldn't ever quite get the right stuff to come back. And David Firstman points out fruit cup if the right letter was available. What a nice find. But unfortunately, no available I or C for Bradley. He does have the first blank. Or, sorry, no, the second blank. I forgot the first play of the game involved the blank. So he will likely be trying to shape up his rack a bit this turn to get close to a bingo next turn.
This wreck is surprisingly tough. As ugly as it looks for Bradley, I would still sit here for a while and try to see if there's some weird upward or, it looks so bad, and yet there are options for possible bingos. Now, I'm not seeing anything. I'm also very bad at Scrabble, so I'm leaning into the chat to find one if there is something. But otherwise, we might see him think for just a while, and then eventually we're going to see, I guess, something come out that's not a bingo. Chat likes Pafui to the I and roping. Definitely want to try to figure out a way to get rid of one of the U's and probably the F as well while scoring some points.
Yeah, I do wonder though, since Brad is now down by nearly 100 points, he might want to keep the D open in Disco because that's going to be probably the highest scoring point lane, aside from the W that Will opened up. But the D is more probable. There are more 8-letter words starting with D than 8-letter words starting with W. So he might not want to play Fui, even though it keeps a better leave than other options, just so he can maintain that high scoring spot.
I agree with that assessment. I'm inclined to play Fugu here. I don't like taking out the ropings hook, but at the same time, Fugu is going to set up the P underneath, and Bradley will be holding the P. So if he does draw a bingo next turn, it should be able to play in a spot that likely won't get likely won't get blocked. So Fugu, I think, might be the play we see here through the U or through the G rather.
Yeah, so Fugu, Fugu, it's one of those useful words that 4-letter words with two U's in them, which it's the exact sort of thing Bradley needs right here. So yeah, that seems like a pretty good option. I'm wondering if he could try to open up anything on a different part of the board. It's tough, but like, what do you consider tofu here? Uh,
That's yeah, that's a great question. I mean, these are the racks where because you're not gonna be able to score anyway, you would love to take this opportunity to shape the board in a way. But is tofu crazy
uh,
or is it
off of
correct?
yeah, yeah, and that's off of the TO from Jet and Hooved. I think I actually really like that idea. If I'm down by 98, like I am with Brad, uh, that that would be the kind of play I would make. But
I
if you
just don't think you can justify scoring 7 when you've got another option that seems good for 16. 9 points is a lot. He doesn't have the last S. There's still one S unseen as well. So it's a tough play to make, and holding that U alone is gonna decrease your bingo percentage next turn quite a bit. So I still would have played Fugu. If I had seen Tofu and been that creative, I would have thought about it for a while, and I bet there's a few crazy players out there who would have done it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's definitely an interesting thought. And
yes,
go ahead, Morris.
I was gonna say, so yeah, for the viewers at home, Matt called me crazy, and we're all good, but I'd be that crazy player with tofu for sure. That's the kind of play I would definitely make. Uh, in my view, I often think when I'm down 100 points, make my opponent have to think, right? Make them have to think about closing down another side of the board, that sort of stuff. But no, 9 points is a lot, to be fair. Totally understood, but I'm the crazy type to play tofu for sure. Sign me up.
Speaking of crazy, our score widget is still broken. So Morris, can you refresh us on the score? Let us know how desperate Bradley is to try to crawl back into this game.
Yeah, that's fair. It is 278 to 196 in favor of Will, so that is an 82 point lead. And Will's turn as well is right now. So if he scores, 30 points, which is fairly, he can't actually this turn, but often if you think your opponent will score 30-ish points the next turn, uh, that might be reason to play Tofu. But Will makes a very nice play of AY creating Ab and Ryu, and it scores 19 points and really just continues to build his lead, gets rid of some of the tiles that aren't synergistic on his rack. Really just good play.
Yeah, nice job by Will. Just kind of keep things tight, keep things closed. With the lead, you're not going to open the board, and you want to try to keep your rec flexible enough that if your opponent does choose to open it, you're going to jump back on that spot and close it. Poor Brad here. He pulled into his PRT leave, which was a really beautiful leave, DOV, and that is not good news for his prospects of bingoing now or next turn or winning this game.
Yeah, it's a 101 point lead right now for Will. So you know Bradley needs to start creating options that give him a chance to get back from that kind of lead. I mean, luckily he knows Will can't have a blank, for instance. AY might suggest he's close to bingo tiles, and we know Will isn't quite as close as that might suggest. But Bradley still needs to start, I think, figuring out a way to get rid of some tiles, but also give himself a few bingo lanes on different parts of the board so that he can bingo multiple times to come back.
20.
This has us looking at the same spot as Tofu. I think I would consider opt for 7 from that O in Hooved. So maybe I'm crazy now. Bradley likes to keep the most flexible leave possible, or one of the most flexible leaves possible. He's just going to play Vow, score a good amount of points right now, and leave DRPT. So he will need at least one Vow on this 2-tile draw to have a shot to bingo next turn. And we'll see if he gets it in just a moment.
Yeah, and if you're Will, I mean, one thing is there aren't a lot of spots to just score in general on this board. And so he might continue to play 2, 3 letters at a time, not open up anything more, and just kind of try to maintain the lead he has, hoping Bradley doesn't open up something that he can't hit himself. So
I
it's
was
a
trying to
weird
find.
situation for Will. Yeah.
Will definitely is thinking about the D and disco right now. The last thing he wants is a 90 to 100 point bingo to come down from that spot. I was looking at ways that he could consider blocking that. Underlapping Fugu is not in the cards right now. He doesn't have a letter to backhook the U. So I was like, what if he plays like Glaciate? But
Oh
that opens up a huge bingo line. You absolutely can't do that. But some kind of word through that spot would be a good idea, I think, to address that floating D in disco.
that's lovely. Great find. What a flex on camera by Matt Kanek.
It's a terrible play, but
It's cool looking
if
though.
it didn't dangle that E out there, it'd be a fun option. But you can't open that line for Bradley to hit sevens on a board with this shape.
Yeah, and one thing to notice is that there are a lot of E's compared to the rest of vowels unseen in the bag. I think there are 8 E's unplayed at this point, or 8 E's unseen from Will's perspective, I should say.
Wow.
And and then there most of the A's have been played or seen from Will's perspective since he's keeping two, and most of the O's have been played. It's really an E heavy bag for vowels, so he should be okay with playing off his E. Uh, but yeah, Glaciate, Matt is right, does open up such an easy bingo lane. You're not going to do it.
I might play D bag here from the D. I'm a little concerned about oh whoa.
He's going riskier.
Whoa. Whoa. 100 point lead, blank unseen. And Will is thinking about playing B flag to open another triple triple line. I think he's hit the clock. I think he's made that play. It definitely scores better than most of the other options we've seen. But if I'm Will, I drop game one and then I get triple tripled on in this situation, I would be on tilt for the rest of the tournament. And for that reason alone, I don't think I'd be able to make that play.
Yeah, luckily the G isn't the best tile in the triple triple lane, unlike last game sticking an A in the middle. But it does give Bradley some higher point options. He did have pre-told before off of the U in Fugu, which he still has, but he also now has words like prattled now through the A and B flag. Uh, so yeah, I get it from Will's perspective. It's just scores so much better and gets rid of a lot of the clunk all at once. You know, I kind of think of it as if I'm going to lose my first 2 games of nationals with triple triples, it wasn't in the cards this year anyway.
Right, right. And it definitely, as Morris mentioned, that's probably an equity play. Definitely, it helps you on average score more points than your opponent. But with a 100 point lead, you don't think about equity as much. You think about winning this game. And it's really tough to have that philosophical discussion of, well, do I just start closing the board but only scoring 10 or 12 points? Or do I continue playing aggressively and try to run up the score but give up the slight risk, the 2% chance that my opponent does hit the triple triple through the G?
Yeah, and uh, I guess one other thing to keep in mind there that Will was definitely conscious of is Brad was playing Prattled. Very nice find. Is when Bradley plays Vow, he's probably keeping pretty good letters at that point. I mean, he plays Fugu and then Vow. Fugu, yeah, you might just want to get rid of those 3 tiles specifically, but after Vow, you should be thinking my opponent's probably keeping 5 pretty synergistic tiles at that point.
Yeah,
And
5
so,
synergistic tiles or 4 in a blank. That's about all you can conclude from Val. But Will must have seen something. Maybe he saw the pool. Maybe he saw the sheer number of E's and was not super worried about it. Will must have seen something. The other G's are also out. I think, a GG bingo would definitely increase the chances we hit there. But that was the last G, so I think it. I don't know. I would never have made that play, but Will Anderson is a national champion for a reason. So
yeah. Oh, and look at what he's playing now. I was just like drawn to Axe below the LED in Prattle, but he plays Accept for many more points than that. a 60-point play instead of a 50-point play, to be precise. And that gives him, even after Bradley's bingo, a 91-point lead of 381 to 290. I'll type that in chat as well.
Yeah, I would have played Axe without thinking. For sure, it blocks the bingo lines in a game where I'm winning by a lot. And Brad has done what is the worst case scenario for Will. He's immediately drawn back into bingos. So he is, inmates or tamians or however you say that. Will might be kicking himself for playing accept. Yes, it's more points, but I would have addressed that spot absolutely 100%. Axe is an easy way to close the board, score a bunch of points, and still hold decent letters. Maybe he was thinking about the number of E's unseen and he wanted to play two E's. Maybe he thinks he can outrun a bingo anyway. He's just going to turn on the jets and start running. Um, but this will be interesting now. Brad's going to be able to play a bingo and score very well.
Yeah, he could tie the game with Tamin's Tameins below the E and the D in Prattled. That would be 91. He is down exactly 91 points. So it will be a tight game, and there are also only 9 tiles in the bag. So after that, it will basically be an end game, a pre-end game to end game decision for Will. Bradley should see Tamians, Edmonds, all those bingos. For those newer to Scrabble, one classic way to start studying is by knowing 6 synergistic tiles like AEINST, what pairs with it. So AEINST, I think, pairs with all but 3 or 4 letters for sevens, and uh, Bradley should know all of the ones that pair with an M there.
I think this game might get crazy. Will has pulled just an absolutely abysmal rack after accept. He pulled basically all of the vowels that we were seeing in the pool at once. And even though it'll be his turn in this tie game, he's not going to be able to do almost anything. And Morris, how many tiles are in the bag right now?
There are 9 tiles in the bag,
So
so if
Will have no recourse, no option to exchange because only 2 tiles will be remaining. Will's going to have to try to fight out an end game with whatever that rack is.
yeah, and we were talking about how there were 8 E's unseen. Will now has 4 of them. They will be the last 4 E's in the game. So yeah, just a tough pull for Will there. Sometimes Scrabble seems easy until it isn't. And that was one of these situations.
That's a beautiful assessment. Scrabble seems easy until it isn't. Morris, I'd like to take a second while Brad looks over his bingos and decides which one to play. For those watching who are maybe less familiar with tournament Scrabble, how can people get more into this game? Where can they play
Yeah,
tournaments?
yeah. So I'm going to throw a link in the chat that will get them to scrabbleplayers.org/info. And if anyone wants to kind of refresh that during the tournament, you can just do the exclamation point play, and the MooBot will show the link for that. So just if you can't remember the precise link, just do exclamation point play in the Twitch chat, and that will take you to all the info you want to know about Scrabble.
Most metropolitan areas in North America have a decent sized Scrabble club. They typically meet about once a week for you to get some recreational games in and meet some people in a laid back environment. For those who are a little more diehard, there's just a list of tournaments all over the place. Typically, several tournaments happen every single weekend in North America. So pick your poison. Club, casual play, tournament, competitive play, online play. There are many resources to play online as well. But yeah, if you're watching Scrabble for the first time and want to get into it, we all love this game. We're here for a reason. These players are here for a reason, and yeah, lots of resources to get into Scrabble.
Yeah, it's this game. It's gonna get crazy so quickly. I'm just my eyes are on this right now. But yes, everything Matt said, totally good, totally valid. Uh, get involved in Scrabble, but Bradley is laying down the 7, so
So
it's
it
going to
is
be a
a
tie game.
tie game with 2 tiles in the bag. I'm concerned. Bradley, I think, took a lot more time than he should have on that turn, and he's only going to have about 4 minutes to play an endgame with, some might argue, is one of the very, very best players on the planet, if not the best player. So I would have loved to have more time if I were Brad to go into this game.
Yeah, I think from Bradley's perspective, his end game options might be a bit easier because he will likely draw the Y and the K, which are the last two high scoring tiles here. Uh, I mean, we'll see what two letters he leaves in the bag. The score now is 381 to 381 if the player scored every play correctly, to be fair. But it is it is down to the wire. There are two tiles in the bag. This is as competitive as we get, and the K remains in the bag, so that will help out Will a lot. I mean, we'll see if he. I think it is the right idea that he's doing. Play off as many tiles as possible and hope for the best. Uh, One option players often like to do with two or three tiles in the bag is not empty the bag, so they'll have something called tempo advantage in the end game. If for those newer to Scrabble, whoever finishes all their letters first, that's when the game ends. So in a close game like this, that sort of tempo could matter. But Will has so many E's that just playing off one tile right now probably isn't worth it.
There are 2 tiles left in the bag. I know one of them is a K. Morris, what else is unseen?
So I think it's KI are the two letters unseen.
KI. Okay. That is huge for Will that Bradley did not pick up the K. I think the K would have given him scoring options to sneak out the end game. Um, if Bradley drew the K instead of the Y too, the Y won't really synergize well with what Will leaves. But it was huge that Will's going to be able to draw that K and maybe sneak some extra points out of this game. Bad
And he
break for
also
Brad.
blocked. Oh, sorry. Yeah, he also blocked the good Y scoring spot right there too, which is pretty important for him.
He allows another Y spot that YOU and YES is still going to be able to play. Does that so for Bradley right now, he sees that Will's rack is terrible. I'm sure Bradley has tracked the tiles correctly. Although honestly, on stream, I shook so much because I was so nervous that I mistracked to lose a game to Will at this tournament 3 years ago. But Bradley certainly is going through now. He sees Will's not going to be able to go out in one move, and it's on Bradley now to figure out how can I go out in two. I need to score points, yes, but I need to go out in 2 moves. I need to play now, and my next move has to clear out the rest of my rack. He's only got 3.5 minutes now to figure out how to do that. So it will be interesting to see what he's able to do in a time crunch on stream when the pressure's high.
Yeah, it's I I want to look at this position for a bit. I mean, he has YOU set up that gives him Naoi. I don't know if there's any places for Naoi, but his main strategy in these sorts of end games is an out into, right? Do you get one turn, your opponent gets a turn, if they can't play off all five of their tiles in this case, and then Bradley will hopefully have one final play to go out and seal the win. That's what he's looking for. So I guess he does have Anion through the N in Runtier if he does play you. Uh, yeah, I guess what are you seeing any two-turn sequences that he can do here?
Yeah, I think you play Anion right now. You set up YOU.
Nice. Yeah, in two spots, right? That sets up a high-scoring YOU.
Yeah, because there's nothing Will can do, even though Anion opens up okay. There's no other words he can make. He can't play KI because NI is not valid. Um, I think Anion right now is maybe the way to win. Bradley's
It
found a very
is.
nice word of Noyao, but I don't know that that's going to fit in a place that makes that play relevant. It's a good word, yes. But I think playing Anion now wins the game just from my initial assessment. Well, I don't. That's so hard for a player to see. So we'll see what Brad's able to think of. Morris, have you ran this end game?
Yeah, so I just looked at it. Anion is our top play, so commentators win on this game.
Yes, I've
We found
still
the best
got it.
endgame. Yeah, I feel like it was. I'll take like 2% of the credit because I did point out Anion, but
Oh, the credit goes to Sam Kaplan, I believe.
yeah.
He's the
Oh,
one who
okay.
saw the Anion spot. I was just the
Oh,
one
okay.
who flipped the order here, but that's so disgusting that it sets up the Y in 2 spots.
And so there are a few other wins. So not C through the Z, for instance, wins just because it scores enough, keeping YOU as an option for a next turn. So even though that isn't the out and two sort of strategy that players often look for, that will just be a brute force outscore more than your opponent way to win.
22.
So Will's got Reiki down from the R. Ooh, Auzo. Okay, that's gonna hold a
Who's it?
yin. A-Y-I Uzo. That's gonna hold a yin. A-Y-I-N. But I don't see a spot for him to put that. I don't
Yeah,
see
that's
any
interesting.
outs. So I think
Yeah, this
just
is
because of the time crunch, maybe Brad. Oh, he reached into the bag. Did he know the bag was empty?
I think
He
he
had to.
did.
He had to.
He saw, but I think this should still be enough to win. He is up 403 to 397 now, which seems because Will can't go out here either. Uh,
Will can
so
play Reiki. He has to block Rainy from the R. And I
right,
Yeah, Brad's gonna be able to hit Yak back from that. I can't do this math right now. I need a piece of paper, but this is gonna be
uh,
tight.
it's going to be tight, but I think Bradley can eke out the win here. Uh, so Will can only win if Brad doesn't find the right sequence, essentially. Uh, So Will does need to block. I mean, he has to assume Brad can see Rainy here. He can't assume that kind of error. So he could play Reiki, but he might be looking for whatever play could induce the most kinds of mistakes here. Uh, so he might even just play REI uh, if he thinks that could induce
No,
more
that gives
mistakes.
back a Rain and a Yin. He
Oh, of
can't do
course, of
that.
course. No, never mind. So, uh, yeah, maybe.
REE leaves, I think Wiki and Tiki are both options. So
Yeah,
REE force Bradley to make another play, but I mean, there's so many plays like YIN and YES that like Bradley, I think, is just going to be able to win this game anyway. Bradley is up 6 points. It is Will's turn, but Will has absolute garbage. So this is incredible. Honestly, great job by Bradley of crawling his way back into this game. I had chalked this up as a Will victory already in my head. Beflag, I think, was a very curious play. Except was definitely one Will's going to be thinking about for a while after this because of the bingo that came down right afterwards. I wonder what's going on in Will's head right now if he's rethinking some of the choices he's made. Well, right now he's probably trying to solve an unsolvable end game, but shortly thereafter, I think he's going to have some things to look back on here. I'm not saying he made wrong decisions. In Scrabble, you have to make hard decisions and you have to gamble all the time. But he's going to be thinking about this one. This is a loss that I think will stick with him. And a big part of the Scrabble, especially at a long tournament like the Nationals, is the mental game and being confident that you've made choices that were okay and not kicking yourself when they sometimes don't work out.
yeah, yeah. It's a tough position. I think we can all relate to Will right now, who's if you've played in a tournament and you think things are going well, because he had over an 100-point lead at points in this game. Uh, and yeah, it's uh, it's a big blow when these sorts of games happen.
Morris, just to confirm, Reiki doesn't win this game, right? Bradley's going to be able
It
to score enough points.
it should lose by 3.
Yeah,
Uh,
Bradley, I think, can hit Yank back or Inky.
Yank and Inky both score just enough to win. So Yak actually would lose by 1, but yeah, Yank or Inky will win by 3. I mean, Will could also. We don't know if there's any sort of scoring mistakes in the game, right? These scores are all just being based on us running the Scrabble engine ourselves. But if there's a scoring mistake, right? If someone was off by a point or two, that could impact Will's decision making here.
And I wonder if Will and or Bradley. I think maybe the reason Bradley spent so long on that Tamian's turn is not because he didn't know that word, but because he was recounting the entire game. I know that's a thing many experts will do just so they don't lose on a recount. Morris, why don't you explain to the crowd what a recount is, real quick?
Yeah, good point. So recounts are so we are getting all the scores from actually entering them into a computer and the computer correctly adding up the score. Uh, Players in over a live board, you have to count up the score yourself, and there are occasional mistakes that people make. They could be off by a point or two here and there on different turns. And so, a when a game is close enough, you are allowed to ask for a recount, which basically means if, let's say, you lose by 1 point, or even if you tie, you can ask for a recount, and then you re-add, like you retally all the scores from the game and confirm that everything was scored correctly. Until you actually sign the slip of what the final score is and submit that to your tournament director, the score isn't official. So you're allowed to recount it as many times as makes sense until you actually submit the signed score sheet by both players. So yeah, I'm guessing Bradley. He spent a lot of time we saw on that Tamian's turn. My guess is he was either recounting the score or tracking the tiles at that point, just to make sure that he had feasible wins at that point. Uh, so tracking the tiles just means we know, for instance, or we knew that the last few tiles in the bag were KI, because we were tracking it via the computer. Players have to do that individually as well during a tournament, and that could also be a source of error sometimes. I've definitely lost games because I mistracked. I thought there were certain letters either in the bag or not in the bag, and my opponent then, to my detriment, played something that won for them. But Will does
Mhm.
play Reiki, and Bradley needs to make sure he plays Yank or Inky to give him a 3 point win. If he plays Yak, he loses by one. But again, we don't know what the players see on their own score sheets. We do know that the score right now is 411 to 403 for Will. And
Bradley
that,
has 25 seconds. He's going to have to do
oh my
something
God.
quick.
Oh my God, Bradley.
The
So,
only the best way to lose is to go overtime here. Here comes Yank. Bradley is likely quite confident it's going to win, but especially on a stream, man, you get in your own head. So Will's going to drop the E behind Fugu, right, and then win by or lose by just a smidge.
lose by 3 points. You might not see Fugue as an option.
Oh, he does. He's
Oh,
Will
he does.
Anderson. Of
He's
course he
Will
does.
Anderson. He
Five. Yeah,
sees Fugue.
okay. Intense. Look at this. 6 seconds left. 5 seconds left. They're going to do the math, and I think we're going to see a 3 point Bradley Whitmarsh victory over Will Anderson.
Wow. That, what a game.
What a game. That was nuts. Brad snatching a victory from the jaws of defeat. Great job. And Will just absolute heartbreak. Where I think just the worst possible thing that could have happened did happen with a blank bingo followed by a 91 point follow up.
So it's a heartbreaker for Will. These situations are never fun, but luckily there are 29 more games to Scrabble. And someone pointed out Will in the recent Word Cup lost, I think, 7 of his first 11, then clawed his way back. So he definitely can go on these streaks of like losing a bunch and then winning way more, because he wins a lot more often than he loses in the grand scheme of things. In small samples, 2 losses in a row can happen, but there's a lot of tournament left. So I think they're recounting right now.
Absolutely. That blank slip is still sitting next to the board. So we'll be seeing a recount for a couple minutes as players go through this game, but we've got the scores calculated. So barring an absolute fluke, this is a 3 point game.
Yeah, it's wild. In the meantime, once again, I'm going to just throw the play link if you want to get involved in playing Scrabble in tournaments. If you want to come back from 90 point losses, or more like my style, if you want to have 90 point leads and lose them like Will did here, uh, go to that link and you'll be able to check out what tournaments are around. This is the 2022 Scrabble Players Championship live stream presented by Scrabble Go. I think we're going to take a short break for a few minutes before we come back for the next game, and we'll see you soon.
And I'm going to step away for just a second more, so I'll be right back.
Yep, okay.
Okay.
Oops. Sorry.
Whatever. I'll understand.
Yeah,
Thanks.
okay.
So, Christian, I see that the quackling suggestion. So I'm right now doing that on a different computer. I'm happy to screen share that, but I'll just can I join a second time into the stream, or will that mess things up? Oh, right. Sorry, I took my phone. I was walking around. So I am quackling on a separate computer. I can. I can. Would it mess things up if I join a second time? Share the Quackle screen. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go to the restroom for 1 minute and then come back.
I am back. I don't think we need me to do anything, but just saying I'm here.
Do you want me to swear?
That's fine. Absolutely not a game I should lose ever. I just got stupid.
To play or like?
Just playing badly with a good board position. Playing Collinsley. Getting burnt.
You play Collins, so.
Yeah, well, I know how to play this. I knew I was misstepping. Just give me a second.
Who's going first?
Me.
Yep. Nice to meet you. I'm Sid. I didn't bring my name tags whenever, but I think Will knows me, so.
Sure.
We're going to get you to spell your name so it goes out accurately, though. How do you spell your name?
Oh, my full name, Siddharth. Two D's, Siddharth. Last name, without the A at the end. So there's no A. Yeah. Last name Murali.
You prefer to be just
Sid.
Sid?
Yeah, just Sid. I'll just go by Sid.
Okay. All right, then.
Are we okay to start?
That's how we'll have you. Unless it's your
Okay,
official
fine.
registration.
On cross tables it's Sid, but on NASPA it's Sid Hart.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll do that.
I think my NASPA will be.
It's that
my full
bad
name,
still?
Yeah.
Got it.
Murali, Murali. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. We can go, I guess. They're saying we can just start anytime. I guess the stream's having bandwidth problems.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll fix it. God, that was such a bad loss. Oh my god.
Were you ahead at any point?
Way ahead.
Way ahead?
Way ahead, yeah. Just playing stupidly with the lead and letting him come back if he wanted to and drawing bad, but I didn't have to expose myself to it at all. Gotta dust myself off. Okay, if you want to shake.
That's fine.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So we're going? Okay. Yep. So 32.
Hello, everyone, and we are back on the stream. We see that Sid Murali just found an awesome play of Fixatives through an F with a blank F2. So he is up 84 to 32. For now, we're just going to be using my Quackle scores for scoring. So again, if the players score something slightly differently, that won't appear here. but this is what we're using for now. I'm here with Matt Canick, expert player. Matt, how is it going?
Things are going well. I'm so impressed with that find by Sid. Thinking to look through an F with a blank that you make another F, knowing that word, that is deep, deep in the probability range. Really impressive stuff. Oh my goodness. Everybody is bringing their A plus game to board one against Will Anderson. You're starting to see a little bit of the frustration, I think, on his face as he leans down and looks at JPOOVW together. Wow.
We're also getting some high praise for Sid in the chat. 14 Domino said Sid is basically the future. He's basically a younger Gibson, top defensive player. Uh, yeah, I mean he is the closest I think we can say to the embodiment of Dave Gibson today, with just how defensive he plays, how much he constricts the board. It's really he's a stubborn player. I think is one way to put it, in the best of ways possible. He doesn't conform to your strategy and your board positioning. He will make his own board position.
It'll be very interesting too. A defensive player, the best thing you can do is take an early lead. And with that blank and that S, that's exactly what he was able to do. So we'll see if he's able to do what he wants to do with the board. Will obviously has to be aware of Sid's reputation as a player as well, and Sid's tendency to close the board. We'll see if Will chooses to capitalize on that, or if he has to try to play and keep things open. We don't even know that Will's going to be down that much yet. Yes, he's down 50, but it's his turn. Um, we'll see what he's able to do, but lots of Scrabble to be played yet.
Yeah, so it looks like he's set up two different things on his rack. Right now he has Jow set up. I'm guessing that goes beneath the B and the E in the Gulf, making BO and EW. The other thing he's also considered is Puja through the A in Fixotifs, POOJA. And so uh, he's likely deciding between those two options. They both score in the mid 20s. He's down by 52, as Matt said. So, getting any dent you can, getting rid of some of the clunkier tiles, all good ideas here.
I'm maybe inclined to play Puja in this situation just because I think it's going to create some lines that might not go away for a while. But I think either play has a good amount of merit.
Yeah, so with seven, right, Sid played a bingo, so he has completely random tiles right now. Will might be setting up
Hmm.
his O to some extent here. Uh, Beneath Puja did have some scoring options, but yeah, I'd be curious
Yeah.
to hear his logic behind choosing Zhao over uh, Puja. But Sid right away plays the high scoring Cadiz.
50 points after a blank bingo. This is starting to get ugly pretty fast. We'll see if Sid's able to pull a good draw into that GRM leave. And Will's still kind of struggling with the same garbage he had last time, the V and the O, and now he's picked up a second W. He's not having the best time right now, but something like Vow is going to be able to set up his A. I think a play like Vow underneath the Jow will drive Sid nuts too, because it does take that front A. And if Sid doesn't draw an A, but he did, it would have driven him nuts. I would love to make that play on Sid. Um,
Yeah, and one thing that does is Scrabble lingo. If you hear us say fork the board, it basically means create two lanes that can't really both be blocked at the same time that easily. So vow underneath Jow, so it takes an A front hook. A vow is a word, and he's doing that right now. Good for Will. And bow takes an L, it takes an S,
30.
and you can't just make a word underneath vow because the V doesn't have any two-letter words associated with it. So Vow forks the board because it creates two lanes, completely opposite quadrants of the board. Can't block both at once.
But Sid, because he did pick up an A, he has many options to make a vow. He can play grand. He can play hang. He's got a bunch of options, and
Yeah,
I'd be very surprised if he doesn't do anything except jump right on that spot right away.
yeah. Knowing Sid, I'm gonna guess he might go for the defensive ARGH as an option, just because I don't think that takes an S. And It doesn't create any letters. Right. So things like hang, the H will be sticking out, and you can make an EH word, an OH word, or an AH word going up. So we'll still keep a 7 letter lane, whereas ARGH wouldn't do that.
I expect to see Grand come down here anyway, but I'm not for sure. Will is going to end up having Rapidity or another similar bingo through that T.
Nice.
So Will's going to be bingoing unless Sid does something extremely bizarre here and chooses not to address the vowel spot.
Yeah, and the chat points out that grandma with an H at the end is not a valid word, but maybe he's even considering grandma here through the A and fixatives, and that would block rapidity.
Wouldn't it be wild if he just plays? Well, no, that's not going to work. That's not going to work at all. But if Sid does actually block Rapidity, I'd be very surprised right now. This is going to be Grand and a vow.
Yeah, I think that's right. It just happens to be M's the next tile over.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
but
think
yeah, I guess
Imparity also plays through the T, but Will needs that line, I'm pretty sure, to be able to get anything out of this wreck.
yeah, I think that is his one option right now.
Sid is aggravating over this. If I'm Sid, I really want to retain that H on my rack because of the S in fixatives. I want to be able to hold that H to make SH and make a word going down to score 30 points or so. Not the most fun spot to play because it sets you up for overlapping plays in the row to the right. But I'd rather hold that H on this board, just given what we're looking at so far. I think Grand is the right thing to do here. Oh my goodness, if he plays Grandma for some reason, oh my good, Will is going to be very upset because Will's going to see all of those letters. Will's going to see that Sid had Vow available and decided not to play it for some reason. Um, what?
Yeah.
Oh, Sid can also fish for begolfing, right? Like if he can hold the
Yeah.
NG together, that's really cool. He can play something like hard or something instead. Hold that
Yeah.
NG. He's just an I away. Wow, this is actually an interesting turn. Grand is going to get rid of that. Grandma is his best play, ironically, but is he seriously going to do this right now?
This would be like so disgusting and like
Yeah, can we verify the players aren't listening to us talk right now? Like, I'm just
his
kidding, of
grandma.
course, but
What Sid Murali? I mean, that is
oh my
it.
goodness.
But if you look, it does just dent so much of the board, and he has a lead. I mean, it's it really is incredible he makes this move, but man, it does just cut down the variance of the position so much. It yeah, it's you can't.
With the speed that Val came down, though, you have to assume Will was holding on to an A in many cases. Not always, absolutely. Val is a play you have to make even without it, but he didn't think very long. And I am shocked that Sid made that play. That is bizarre, but wow, it's going to work out for him well.
And I think he drew some bingos too, so he is cooking
Oh
with
my
fire.
goodness. And then Sid's going to draw just amazing stuff on top of that. Oh, wow. Wow, wow, wow. This is not Will's tournament. Will's going to have to leave a vow open, I think, and then Sid's going to get to play like Slasher or something.
Yeah, yeah. So he could go there. He could also go beneath bow, either with bull or bows.
Yeah,
So
Lasher. Yeah. So Will forks the board. Sid doesn't block it. Will misses bingos in both of the lines, and then Sid draws bingos that play in both of the lines. Bizarre.
bizarre, but that's Sid for you. Like Sid is one of is he might be the most uh, adept player at understanding board positions. Uh, it's he's a really tough player in that way, and Will's running into that firsthand right now.
I would be livid right now if I were Will. to see that A come down, to see my bingo blocked, to have no options, and to be sitting on this garbage, I would be livid. And that's, I think, the Sid Morale experience is he frustrates you with what he can do to the board and what he does to the board.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you're Will here, what do you even do?
I have no idea. I would sit here and literally just fume for like 4 minutes and then dump something stupid somewhere.
Yeah, so the top Quackle suggestion is Airy and a Vow, but it doesn't really accomplish a lot if you're down by 70 points. It scores 24, sure, but you're closing down your best bingo lane at that point. And against someone like Sid, who you've already seen is such a blocky player, you might want to keep that A open.
Aries a play I think I might make against Sid anyway, just because I know I'm going to be able to make up some points as he squanders points to block the board,
Yeah.
as we saw him do with Grandma. He definitely passed up significantly higher scoring options. So Will's going to be able to do that, but unfortunately, it's just not going to work out for him because Lashers is going to come down for a gazillion.
Yeah, yeah. It's it's not Will's turn, right? As Matt said before, but he does have his blank. We'll see what he draws with it. Oh wow, he drew some hefty tiles. So Sid plays Slasher almost instantly, and will be
This
down by over 100, but definitely has some
this
scoring potential.
Slasher, you might think, hey, I don't want to make that play because it takes the back S, but already Sid has drawn and played all 4 of the S's in this game.
Disgusting, absolutely disgusting. So yeah, Will might just drop the Z here off of the A and Cotties for 31 because EHIPP blank does have some synergy.
I wonder if there's any word Will can fish for above Cotties with the Z through that F that'll score like 100, but I don't think there's one there. There's like
Well,
Zaftig and stuff, but that doesn't work.
Hafiz would be his one option if he uh, so he could play that now with a burning a blank, but if he wanted to play Pep somewhere, keeping HIZ and draw into an A, that could be his option.
I think the only way to justify fishing for a play there is if you're able to slot the Z on the blue square. That would be 100 plus, and I don't think there's a word in this lexicon that follows that pattern. Hafiz is maybe I don't think it scores quite enough to justify a fish or anything like that.
I think it would score 66.
Yeah, I just not enough to justify a fish. It'd have to be just an absolute like 100-point bomb.
Yeah, that's very fair. Yeah, I was wondering if there is a spot to play both P's for like 20 plus points. I think that right. So prep and slasher prep might be worth considering here. It's yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'd probably prefer Za, but prep isn't out of the question. I think.
I think if you're Will here, you've just got to really well, you have to make that philosophical decision once again of like am I cutting spread? I'm dying right now. Or am I still trying to win this game and playing very aggressively?
Yeah, and thanks to WTFJ00 for the pattern match. We actually can't put letters ahead of the Z here just because the Q doesn't take any front hooks for 2-letter words. And he's playing Hep. Interesting. I forget. I don't think Hep takes. Oh no, Hep does
It
take an
does now
S.
take an
Yeah, yeah.
S. It also sets up zip and res for over 50 points. So that's a really solid play. And Hep, it does take the S, but there's only a blank unseen, and Will has it. So there's no way Sid can hit that spot back.
Yeah,
So cool
it's a good
play by
idea.
Will. Sets up zip at least for 50. And if you happen to pull a bingo into this, man, you're bingoing for 110 next turn.
Yeah. So it's
Oh my
you
goodness.
gotta give yourself shots to win. Yeah, it's not fun for Will.
And yet that's not that because of that play. It's such a nice play. He can still play zip. He'll hold IIR blank next turn, and he should be able to bingo after that. So he'll get 50. He'll get a bingo. He has a
Well,
shot,
don't
but the
speak
board
too
is
soon. Sid looks like he might be playing EAU either above the RE or making REE and PA. Oh no, now he has bow, so maybe he's not going to play that. But I don't know. We'll see if Sid blocks again. That would be insane. But no, he's making a very nice play of Butte, a beautiful play, I should say, of Butte.
yeah, that is a
Uh,
beaut.
yeah,
I think we'll see
and
zip come down like instantly.
yep,
Nice setup, Will. Good job. Worst case scenario happened, and you're still netting, 50 something points. Like, good job.
104,
Nice
260.
play. Great job not just like instantly going on tilt as I would have already done. I think I'd be done with this game currently because
84,
I would have played the
134,
rest of it so fast.
156,
But good job
235,
not giving up,
235.
continuing to claw his way back, and we'll see if he's able to make opportunities happen after this.
yeah. I mean, the board really isn't conducive to bingos at this point. Is the one issue, as Sid games often are when he's leading. So, like, I don't see a single lane aside from the Y in Airy at this point. So if you can make an eight-letter word with a Y, then sure, you have bingos. And I guess if you can play an SP word, making heps, then that would be the one other bingo spot, but really hard to bingo on this board.
Somehow Will picks up CUG into IIR. I think there's some eights, but they're not going to fit on this board. I see like oliguric and cruising. But yeah, we're not the only line is a Y, and Sid is absolutely not the kind of player who would ever change that by opening this board up.
Yeah. Um, yeah, this will be interesting to see how Sid responds here. I mean, one thing is, once you have an already dead board, it's tough to make plays sometimes that make it even more dead and doesn't give your opponent more options. So, right, Pro here, for instance, gives the new bingo lane, but I think it's very reasonable from Sid's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna hit an 8 ending in an O, you're gonna hit an 8 ending in an O. Like, sometimes stupid stuff happens, but that is less than a 1% chance. And if he really wants to, he can address the line that he just created later as well.
Yeah, and the nice thing about Zip in some ways is it actually doesn't telegraph the S anymore. When Sid sees the turn sequence of Hep then Zip, he then can conclude, okay, Will was just setting up a Z. He wasn't setting up the blank S there
Yeah, yeah.
necessarily.
I don't know that Sid can certainly telegraph anything after Hep. It also scored a lot in a board where you can't score anything. So I don't think Sid is sitting there thinking Will's definitely got a blank or anything like that. I think we're very far from that.
Yeah. So he could burn the blank with begolfing at this point. I mean, there are also five ends out, so he might if I wouldn't put it past Will to keep IG hoping for an N.
I think that's entirely appropriate to do. It's also going to open the board back up and float that G out there. So
And
yeah,
he plays
Will is
Icy
doing
on top of
exactly
that.
that. Yeah, he's doing exactly that. He's trying to get this board back a little bit open. Sid's not going to be able to do much about that opening because he has so many vowels. Icy does not have any front hooks.
Okay.
Um,
I
you know,
always forget if Dicey can be spelled like that, but
no,
good
it's
to
got to
know.
have the E. I've lost turns on that. So Sid's not going to be able to do much. Will now has like oliguric through the eye or oliguria as well if he wants to keep it more open. Sid's not going to be able to do much. So Will fought and fought and fought and is going to crawl his way back into this game, and we'll actually see it be pretty close. Um, yeah, there's no reason to play B Golfing when you can play oliguria instead, as long as it stays there.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what Sid does here. He has Ali set up. I'm not actually seeing where that would go. He could play Larry through the L and slasher, Laree,
There's
which
no
scores
way
you.
Sid plays that.
Yeah, fair, fair. But
Ooh, a Jeep placard recommends re-avow, which I think is kind of cool. It blocks the I, but then it also floats an R and an E for Will to bingo down 2. So it's interesting. I don't think we'll see it, but it is a thought. God, this is a weird turn.
Reavow is actually a nice idea, though, in a lot of ways, because a play through the eye will almost necessarily open up two triple word scores at once. So that will so if Will could do that, he would at least get one of the two triple word scores if Sid takes out one of them. Whereas if you play Reavow and then Will then goes, there's only one triple word score open a lot of the time after Sid uses one of them the next turn. So Sid maybe could go that route, but no, he goes for Lee instead. Very natural play here, I think. Oh,
Oh,
he
he
takes.
pulls it back. Yeah, we'll see. Sid definitely with the tough turn here. I mean, the I would want to drop AL and LI on top of Icy in some cases, but that is so paranoid and so crazy that you just can't justify doing that. You need to score some more points here. The last thing you can do is score 5 or 6 every turn trying to play whack-a-mole with the remaining marginal lines.
Yeah, I think if I were to go that route, I prefer LAC, LI, and AR, LAC. Uh, it's a similar idea, just would score a few more.
Oh, Mitch Bear nicely points out that BOWS takes a back E as well. So
Nice.
that's a way for Sid to score some additional points out of this rack if he notices it and sees it.
14.
Yeah, bows. What a good word. So he plays
Wow.
Reavow.
Oh my
Oh
God.
no.
Will, you can't give that tell. Sid is fishing for it. Will just got visibly distraught. And yeah, Reavow's not going to give Will any bingos back if I'm looking correctly. So, oh my God, Will, you have to stay calm. You have to stay calm. You can't telegraph you have an 8 through the eye. He needs to play Lee here.
This would be disgusting.
If Sid does play Reavow, Will's done. Will's gonna walk out of this playing room. Will's not that person. He's very level-headed and nice typically. But I'd be done.
Yeah, I mean, the one upside is that okay, so he plays Lee. I was going to say the one upside is he could still fish for the golfing, and that is a 45-point play, and with a blank too, you could still claw back, but he'll have the easier route of just getting his bingo down, keeping it within 10 points.
This does confirm that the players cannot hear what we're saying on the stream. Will, I wonder if he's going to designate this blank as an A or a C. That's actually interesting. Oh, it doesn't matter. The S's and blanks are gone. Nobody cares. The Z is gone too, so you're not even worried about ZA bombs. It truly doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
maybe
I
if you make
think
it a C, you have a higher chance of a challenge, but yeah, it doesn't matter.
yeah, I think from my brief look at the blank slip, it looked like an A was circled there.
Yeah,
So
I see an A is circled.
So it's a game again. I mean, this is the opposite of last game from Will's perspective. Last game, he was up by 90 plus points. This game, and Ben Bradley clawed back. This game, opposite story. He was down a bunch. Now he's clawed back, and Sid is now holding the rack with 5 vowels. Uh,
Sid needs to stay out of his own head to watch him set down Reavow and pull it back up. Sid can't play that game of trying to figure out, well, what would he have had if I played it? Because that is the number one way to set yourself on tilt. So Sid has to just focus on what he has and trying to make the right play from there.
Yeah, I mean, this bag is kind of interesting too. I think only one T has been played at this point, if I'm looking correctly. Still a lot of ends out as we were talking about. So there are some low point letters available, but there aren't that many bingo lanes, so it isn't that helpful.
Morris, are you able to copy and paste the unseen pool into our
Uh,
chat?
yeah, I can do that.
I think that would be interesting to see. The remaining hotspots, obviously, if you're able to overlap Olagiria on either side, hit that triple word, or try to bingo down, that'd be interesting. But I'm still interested in that blank F at the top right and fixatives. Is anybody going to be able to crush that spot?
Yeah, so he plays urine, which looks really solid here. It does take a few front hooks, as the chat is pointing out, of M and P. Uh, so the M is left. There are no more P's left, as Will burned through two of those on two consecutive turns earlier in the game for that nice zip setup. Um, Will now has some hefty tiles, though, and it's this board is not really conducive to high scoring things these days. I guess knived is knived valid. I forget these things,
Should be.
or is it just knifed?
Ah, it's not good. Okay. Well,
Knived is invalid, but Will could try that though.
he could. I don't know that he needs to at this point. What does the unseen pool look like to Will? Because I think it's almost entirely 1 and 2 point tiles, and it might be a lot of vowels.
Yeah,
So Will
so
has to think about bingos and not scoring opportunities.
yeah, so I think there's an F, an M, and a C still out are the non. Oh, and a D. So C, D, F, M are the non one pointers. Five T's, four E's, four O's, three N's, three A's. So a lot of that kind of stuff from Will's perspective.
So a lot of sticks is what I like to call them. The 1 point tiles that don't do anything except make bingos.
Yeah. So and knived, as the chat points out, is a call-in. So I I think it could happen. Like knived takes out that bingo lane and scores a lot. And if he likes what's in the pool, it is pretty synergistic tiles, keeping a Y for a high scoring one. It's
How
not
many
unreasonable.
how many O's are unseen? Because he also has Kif on top of Cadiz for like
There
37.
there are four O's unseen.
That makes it really hard to make that play then, because the KA is going to get overlapped with the O. The S's are gone, but the O's are a major concern. If I'm Will, I want to hold on to several of my scoring tiles here because there's not too many left. I want to be able to score 30, 35 a turn and hope Sid pulls into a bunch of those O's and those vowels. I think I can catch this without a bingo, but I've got to hold some stuff that helps me score in the interim.
So the chat points out Linky as an option. I'm also wondering, what if he does Link off of
Oh
the
my
Ellen Slasher?
goodness. Oh
Link
my
off
goodness.
Link off of Slasher. There are no S's, no blanks. It would frustrate Sid to no end, being the defensive player he is. Now, that Linky itself scores 39, so that might just be worth it on its own. If
How
he's
how
feeling
could
really
Link
gutsy,
how could Linky get blocked with what's unseen?
Link. I mean, you could just play like AD and KA from Sid's
I
perspective,
suppose, yeah.
and right, YD is kind of an unnatural. Yes, there are some words that have YD consecutively, but it's not that common. Um, so yeah, Linky is NWL. We can confirm. Uh, so if he plays that, that would be insane.
Linky
uh,
holds Kef on the top too. Like that, this is what I was saying. Will's going to be able to score 35 to 45 a turn for at least 2 to 3 more turns.
yeah.
Sid isn't. Sid's with what's left in the bag from Will's perspectives. I think Sid is going to be very reliant on bingos to score, or he's just going to be playing like 5 and 6 letter words for 15 to 20 points for most of the rest of this game. So very curious to see how Will approaches this situation.
So he's also looking at lived or livened now, I think, which are good ideas too. I mean, the K, I think he's realizing has a lot of scoring potential on this board. Uh, Now, the one thing about lived is it does create a few more 8 lanes, and the seven with the 7 lane that is currently off of the NO from Urine and Oliguria, uh, with the pool with so many sticks, as Matt likes to say, it might just be introducing so many more bingo potential lines for Sid that Will might not want to do that. So we'll see. He's now considering Kif, it looks like, though. So he's he's considering everything here.
Yeah, with 4 unseen O's and a bunch of other stuff, if you play Kif and he does hit you back, well, you're probably going to get to play down from the L next turn and Slasher and do what you want. This is a really tough turn. These are the turns that make or break grandmasters and separate masters from grandmasters. And you can see Will's really cranking just every gear in his head, trying to figure out what optimizes his chances of winning this game.
Yeah, it's. I mean, he has 6 minutes 54 seconds ish now. I would expect him to use probably at least a minute more cycling through all these plays. It's a pivotal turn. It's a very
Absolutely.
pivotal turn.
Absolutely. I like the play of Lived here quite a bit, getting to hold that stuff that's going to score a lot of points. I like holding the K because of that big blue square in the top. I could see the rationale for Linky. I think that's probably the equity play. And VED with a bunch of vowels in the pool can still pull some bingos down in that third row from the left. But man, this is tough.
Yeah. Does that give him back any bingos if he does play, or does that give Sid back any bingos if he plays lived?
I don't think so. Detained. I don't think detained has an anagram, so I think he'll be okay.
Yeah.
Are there any R's unseen? Because fishing for kefir is super interesting too. Not
I
fishing,
don't
but
think there are. Yeah, I don't think
okay,
there are any R's left. Yeah,
okay.
that's a good idea though. Yeah, he has Linky set up, and he's gonna plop that down. So I think you can't argue with taking 39 points.
No, I
It's
think
a lot of
that's
points.
I think that's a very reasonable play here. And Will's next draw, plus
323,
watching Sid
316.
Yeah.
not pull a bingo here is going to be interesting. Shout out to Ori Swift in the background, trying to watch what's going on in this game. Hi, Ori. I like your green Crocs. Ori's my boy.
Yeah, and so Sid now does have a few plays through that blank F and fixative, like defeat. Uh, is a 32 point play. Define also, but that's a bit less defensive. He might go for that, although he could go for setting up a bingo lane. He definitely has options here.
30.
Yeah, Sid has to decide now. There's one bingo line left, and if he makes a fishy type play trying to keep a bingo, Will is going to knock that line out 10 times out of 10. So I don't think Sid can afford to fish here. I think playing something like DFAT, scoring a lot right now, is the right thing to do. I just
Yeah,
wonder what the vowel consonant ratio is unseen, whether that needs to be defeat instead of defat or something similar to that.
yeah, it's a good question. I'll load up the uh, tile pool from Will's perspective now in the chat. I'll try to keep it updated fairly regularly. So there are 9 tiles in the bag. So it's getting close to that pre-endgame state that we saw. Last game went in Bradley's favor, but it could go in Will's favor this game.
You'll see from Sid's rack, this is precisely what I was talking about, though. If you're Will, you want to be able to score now, next turn, and the turn after, because eventually this was going to happen. Looking at the pool, looking at the sheer number of sticks left, somebody was going to pull him. And Will was working from a place of advantage, having the K, the Y, the V all at the same time. He's got stuff that scores, and Sid's going to have just an ugly turn next turn.
Yeah, he did. He did draw some of those O's for that O lane of Oda he created, but doesn't look like it will help him much this coming turn. He could play Ono or New, but that's not scoring a lot there. But meanwhile, it's Will's turn, so he could do something like Voted. That does score 28 and making Nod off of the No and Urine and Oliguria. And it does take out the most prominent bingo spots also. So it definitely could be in the cards there.
He's going to go with Avo opening.
He's going for bingos.
Interesting. Yeah, he must like what he sees unseen. He must like his chances, or maybe he hates his chances and he says, you know what, I don't think I'm going to outrun this anymore. I think I need the bingo to win now. Give us a
So
look at the unseen pool for Sid when you get a shot, Morris.
yeah, so there are 6 in the bag. So Sid cannot exchange also. That was a key aspect of playing 3 tiles instead of 2 tiles last turn. So that's the unseen pool from Sid's perspective. A C D E E F M N O T T T T. So it's I guess the M is probably the best scoring tile for the Murine hook. I guess the F you have above the AS and Defat. But yeah,
There,
Sid doesn't
there are
have a lot
only
of options here.
4 unseen vowels for Sid in that
I
entire
might do
pool.
oniony here.
Oh man, I don't know. Sid is gonna absolutely try to knock out as many of those lines as he can. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, fair.
Noogie, is Noogie good as a 6 Noogie?
Yeah,
That
Noogie is
blocks
good as a 6.
Mirrine, that blocks the new hook with Avo. And hey, if Will's able to have like an ED word or an ET word or something, maybe Noogie's the move.
Yeah,
I don't
Noogie
know.
might be
Does Noogie
better.
score enough?
Sid
So
is doing something interesting though. He's slow playing it, which he must like the pool also. I guess with to be fair, there are so many T's out. A T with the letters he's keeping isn't a terrible lead.
not really.
Uh,
EEINOT. I can't think of almost any 7s, and 8s are not going to play on this pool. I don't agree. I think what Sid wanted to do, though, is leave 4 in the bag. Leaving
yeah,
3 or 4 in the bag basically sets the tempo in Sid's favor.
yeah. So it's scored a fair amount too. That was probably the highest scoring spot on the board for just playing off 2 tiles. If you do want to keep 4 in the bag.
Yeah, I think it's impossible to block every line. You can try to do something like that with Noogie, but you're probably going to get outrun in the end game, even if Will doesn't have the bingo. So maybe this is the right thing to do. I think I like this play. But yeah, Sid, like I was saying, Sid is in so much trouble. He can't score points, and Will just needs to continue chugging and scoring 20 to 30. Should be his game.
Yeah, I mean it's a 19-point lead Sid has right now. So if your will, there are 4 in the bag from his perspective. I'll type the unseen pool into chat. And I'm trying to see what threats he could see from that Sid could have. Aconite, I guess, is available in the pool off of
Action.
the. Yeah, so Aconite would play to the A in Avo, that the lane that Will just created. So he might try to finally play a nod word here. But it looks like he's opting for playing 3 tiles off instead right now with topped. This will be an interesting one. Yeah, Totem and Nom is a really nice idea that was spotted by chat. I like
That you're gonna have 6 tiles on your rack.
350,
And
Whoa, Will!
whoa, Will has decided I'm going to bingo or I'm going to lose, and that is very interesting to me. He has to be looking at the number of vowels in the pool, and he has to think maybe Pion didn't hold just a ton of vowels, so he thinks he's going to get to draw some. Very interesting. Leave 1 in the bag. Gives him 2 shots to fish for a bingo to win the game with several lines available.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
No,
That
no,
one seems. It feels maybe a tilt kind of play, to be honest.
I think you had many other ways to try to win this game without fishing for the bingo. Now, I'm not going to question what Will Anderson does. I'm certain he has a very solid rationale for making that play, but I don't think we had reached that level of desperation at this point in the game. I wonder if that does partially have to do with the fact that he's had 2 just downright brutal games. First, getting killed by the triple after he played Anti-Riot, and then, clutching a defeat from the jaws of victory last round against Bradley Whitmarsh. But I found that play very curious. And he's going to have now. Really, I don't know what's going to happen. I think he's just going to lose at this point. But
I don't know. I mean, Sid. The lucky thing for him is Sid. Maybe his logic was that if Sid has the high point tiles, I'm gonna bingo on the other side of the board, and Sid can take that spot. If Sid has the low point tiles, he can't score there, and I can score there. So like cement he has now there for a ton of points, or he has cement on the other side of the board. He will be able to go out in two. Sid is going to empty the bag here. There's only one in the bag. So he might still be able to eke out a win. I guess he didn't have a lot of time, but that's the kind of play if I were to make it, I need to be really confident in the two scenarios of if Sid has all the low point tiles, do I win? If Sid has all the high point tiles, do I win?
I don't know. I think there was probably a way to play 2 tiles, leave 2 in the bag, score decently well, and not become so reliant on hitting a bingo right now. I mean, Will is going to have some options. He has cement. He's going to go out in 2, but Sid should be able to figure out. There's one in the bag, correct? Sid should be able to
There's
figure out
one in
ways
the
to win
bag.
this game. Sid should be able to go out in 2 with letters that flexible.
Yeah, and the F is the tile in the bag, by the way, for those wondering. So, uh, if you're Sid here, yeah, I think Odin, the play he has set up, is a good idea. He's probably playing off 4 tiles seems strong here to that triple. In general, I'm trying to see what other options he has there, and if more tiles, so ITE, that would work with a lot of the tiles. It works with the C, D, N, and N on Will's rack, for instance, to go out the next turn from Sid's perspective, but it wouldn't work with any of the E's or the F or the T. So he might be looking for other options where if he keeps 3 tiles, whatever the new tile is he draws, how often will that allow him to finish the game in his next turn?
Right. If you're Sid, though, you have to take a lot of solace. The unseen pool now is C, D, E, E, F, M, N, T. There are no possible bingos for Will. And of course, Sid's going to take a second, double check his tracking, and really, really confirm, like, hey, there's nothing, right? There are no possible bingos that Will can have. But I think he's going to draw that conclusion. He's solid enough to know, definitely, there's nothing there. And all he has to do is score a bunch, make sure Will doesn't get cement down, and it should be pretty easy. A play like Tainite, I think, is exactly right. Just play as many tiles as you can. You'll draw one out of the bag, and holding an O, whatever that tile is, you should be able to go out. The one thing you want to watch out for is maybe a C, but with an
C
O
will
on
be
your
fine.
rack, yeah, the C would be fine if you hold an O or a vowel to go with it. Just need to make sure you do that.
Yep. And but if he only plays Odin, Will could maybe still win this actually.
Yeah,
I need to do out the math, but because drawing an F wouldn't allow Sid to go out the next turn. If he plays Tainite, like Matt said, that would guarantee him an out with I think any letter in the pool. Just because just keeping an O, even the C and O don't make any 2-letter words, but Koi off of the Y in Linky and Cog off of the G in Grandma both are words. So he will be able to end the game one turn later.
yeah,
But
I really like this play of Tainite. Shout out to One Wonderful Fish in the chat for the suggestion. But yeah, Sid can draw anything into that O and be able to guarantee he's going to go out next turn. Even if he picks up an E, OE is a word, that gives him some flexibility. And any consonant should be able to go out as well. So Sid, again, he's going to double check his tracking. You can't be so paranoid in Scrabble. You have to have confidence as a grandmaster, like both of these guys are. To know, yes, hey, I'm not getting bingoed on here. Sid's going to go with something
wow,
similar. He's going to play notate, and I
that
presume,
will win.
yeah,
That
I
should win
presume he's
because he
gone
has
through the available tiles he can pull and make sure he has 2 outs, so he can't be blocked. Fine, Keef, Phi,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, he's got Phi on the top. He's got Keef and Fine on the bottom. He's going to win this game. I am very, very confused about Stott for 5.
Yeah.
I
Although it
thought
does
Will.
give Dematon. Notate gives Dematon as parallel.
Oh my goodness,
Demeton.
Deneton. How much is that going to score? It's not going to be
It,
quite enough.
I don't think it will be enough. It's 38. But
It's a big old flex though if Will does drop that. All right, so it looks like we've watched Will Anderson drop 3 straight games in a tournament he was favored to win. Now, it is a long, long tournament. Many more things can happen. But really now, especially if you're Will and your goal is to win the national championship, you have to be first or second after 28 rounds to be there. And it is going to be tough to do that with an 0-3 start.
Yeah, I mean, the lucky thing about this format for him is if someone does go on a tear and is like 22-6,
26.
then the race for second could be super competitive.
That's
So at this point, if you're Will,
4-12.
shooting for, I mean, you never want to shoot for second place. You always want to shoot for first place, but you can shoot for second place through the first 28 games.
I mean, I was not in.
Will is going to have. I don't remember if lunch is after 3 or 4 in this tournament.
Yeah,
Morris, do you
I'm sure
know?
I misplayed
It should be after
based
4,
on
so we have one more game coming up here before
Okay.
lunch.
That would be a very long lunch break for Will if it was right now. Just a lot of time to think, hey, should I have played Stott? Hey, should I have played Beflag? And again, I'm not saying either of those plays were wrong. I'm not good enough to make that judgment, but they were
Thing is, like,
brain rackers that could have gone one way or the other. That is that is tough for Will. A really tough to a really big tournament.
I play,
Wow.
I play like
Yeah,
then EEIP doesn't go out.
it's these tournaments happen to everyone, and we'll see shortly who's going to be
Yeah.
playing. So we'll
What's that?
will not be at board one anymore. The first 3 games were all preset for who was at board one, but round 4 is going to be based on the standings. Since Will's lost a few games, he will not be in first place. So we're going to find out shortly who will be playing, but we're going to take a quick break in between.
My position, I think it's 3 out of 4 chance I win. Still kind of stressful. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
sorry,
think.
though.
No, it's okay. I don't think I can. So with that